How can surrogacy be stopped?
Like how human traffic, if there is no service, there is no demand. I would say that that would be the first one. We have to inform the intended parents that surrogacy is unethical. It has to be repeated and repeated. Couples who are suffering from infertility have legitimate desire to have children. Surrogacy is a market that exploits their pain. The exploitation of women's body and the exploitation of children is not a solution, and it only creates more distress and more inequality that that is adding up to the pain of the infertile couple. Money does not give right over another human being's right or dignity. So how can surrogacy be stopped? It has to be denounced as it is, a market built on human distress. It's in altruistic surrogacy sponsoring, parents pay around $80,000 in Canada and are told that the surrogate mothers gives a gift of life, while all the intermediate are ranking in profits. So as for gender identification ideology, words are diverted from their meaning. Here in Canada, surrogacy is ruled by the Human Assisted Reproduction Act. Surrogacy is not an assisted reproduction technology. Surrogacy is a contract. So surrogacy can be stopped by using the true meaning of words, not a vocabulary that hides the fact and a vocabulary that hides the truth. So surrogacy seems to have different strategy to penetrate states and countries, depending very much on the economical status of the country they adapt on this. In a rich country, the door seems to be the introduction of the idea of altruistic surrogacy as it is in Canada. In rich countries, therefore small step strategy in a rich country like in Canada is the strategy that the international market adopt to penetrate democratic institutions and modify the laws. So how to stop commercial surrogacy? Well, first of all, I would say don't accept altruistic surrogacy in your country. Altruistic surrogacy offers to sponsoring parents a possibility that wasn't there before. So once the supply is there, the demand grows. And the supply of altruistic surrogacy will never fulfill a growing market, especially when homosexuality and being single is counted as social infertility. So in Canada, Bill S-216 was introduced in the Senate last February 2020. And it aims to modify the Assisted Human Reproduction Act, and it's the second the second trial in about 3 years. So the summary reads as follows. So they want, in fact, they just want to repeal the section F that says that it raises health and ethical concerns that justify their prohibitions. They want to erase this paragraph. So magically, with magic, suddenly it's being ethical and without saying any justification why it was not unethical, and suddenly it becomes. It's because of the growth of the market.
First of all, surrogacy is a very complex issue, and if we won't bring up cross linkages with prostitution, pornography, and sex trafficking, etc., and stops the process of normalizing it by liberals, only when people will understand what the actual impact it does on women and children, it maybe can be stopped. Because now it's still a holy deed. And yeah, the same Nordic model can really work with this issue. And looking at the problems, why it's so normalized, I guess it's again the issue of traditional family, that people who, you know, like having a family, they kind of must have kids, and moreover biological kids. And again, yeah, looking at the number of kids at the orphan houses, we can clearly see that we don't need any surrogacy. And again, the issue of patriarchy is, the root of patriarchy is family and its traditional structure, like gay couples included, because they mimic to heterosexual model of family. Principle of complementarity and semi-property of one person having another person with this person having kids, and no matter if they actually mimic to the hetero model, or how much they do that, or how much they claim their in-family relationship to be equal, the code in semiosphere is the same, and on a general basis, systematically and dynamically and globally, we have the same patriarchal families, which literally translate as slavery. People subconsciously recreate the same behavioral pattern. And this is actually one of our brain functions, to make rational predictions. We're collecting the patterns to make predictions. That's the part of the reason why we have stereotypes. So it's not like I'm coming with this out of nowhere. And also we should more bring up the cases where those kids which were, you know, like born via surrogacy, they left in orphan houses due to them having some illnesses and disabilities and so on. So, and also focusing on the actual surrogates, the actual mothers who carry the child. Because in Ukrainian media, we can see a lot of articles of founders of the clinics, some parents who buy kids, but really, like, we have so little information about the actual mothers who suffer from being surrogates and suffer like, you know, with their salaries, and why they choose to do salary, or to do surrogacy, and which conditions made them to be surrogates.
It's now become global big business, and I think we have to continue to campaign. We have to continue to challenge laws and the way in which globally surrogacy, the altruistic kind, as they euphemistically call it, is trying to actually make it universal and acceptable. I'm not quite sure how, with all of the conversations we've had today, we can actually pull that back and actually outlaw surrogacy globally. I think there will always be a market for it. As we've been told, people don't want to have adoptions. They want to have blood children, whatever that means, because that makes a proper family, apparently, which is rather odd way of looking at things, but that's how we have developed ourselves as human beings. As far as feminists concerned, you know, commercial surrogacy is about babies being bought, and altruistic is about babies being given. But if you actually look at both of those, there's nothing between them. They all amount to the woman giving up autonomy, about being contracted to do this, about being controlled, and about what she can and she can't do in both situations. Enormous amount of brainwashing, enormous amount of pressure on women in various ways to be surrogates. And many women appear, rightly or wrongly, to be willing surrogates. I was, in relation to this, I was reading the story of a midwife who claims to be a feminist, and she acts as a surrogate, and she actually resents people like us stepping in and telling her that she doesn't have the right to do what she likes with her body. And she believes that what she's doing is a good thing, and that she isn't uneducated, she isn't poor, and she has every right to be a surrogate, and so on. So I think it's a very, very muddy waters.
The issue to stop surrogacy has to be tackled at an international level. It is the only way, I think, to stop the exploitation, rich, poor, north, south. We think that there are three main ways of acting towards the abolition of surrogacy. The first one is education. It is important to raise awareness amongst young people on respecting the human body and understanding the core of fundamental rights, the rights to dignity and to physical integrity. The second one is to build a very, very strong feminist and human rights international body fighting against surrogacy. The third one is an international convention banning surrogacy. There has been a lot of international conventions on adoption, women trafficking, women and men equality, against violence on women. I think banning surrogacy worldwide should be one of them. And the coalition, our coalition, is now in the process of drafting such a convention.